Now we would like to move on to the keynote speech by Professor Wesley Gill from Canadian Embassy. He's going to talk about energy researches in Canada and expectation from collaboration with Japan, overview of the Mackenzie Delta Malik field. This is a joint project between Japan and Canada regarding Hydrate. Good morning. My name is Gill from the Commerce Department of Canadian Embassy.
Today I'm presenting on the Canada-Japan gas hydrate production research and development at the Malik site in the Northwest Territories in Canada. This is a joint R&D project between Japan and Canada, between Natural Resources Canada and a number of Japanese organizations. And we're bringing this today, this is put together by Natural Resources Canada, and the idea is to present an example of Canada and Japan cooperation in this area, which to show some of the history and also as to hopefully provide ideas and hints for future collaboration, which is one of the themes, I think, of today's forum, is to try to find and explore new ways of developing collaboration between Canada and Japan. So to start with, I want to look at the Malik site within the context of global gas hydrate R&D. Right now you're looking at an example of how gas hydrates deposits are located around the world. The black dots are where they think you can find hydrates, and the white ones are where they have confirmed there are hydrates available. So there are many sites around the world. Some of them have been found based on geological formations or experience. Others have been based on geophysics. So it's still a work in progress in terms of determining where these deposits are. And there in the triangle there is where major field programs are occurring at this point, which we'll explain in a little more detail. One is, at the time, was still the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, now the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry in Japan. We have others like in China, other countries here, Korea, America. And then the one we're going to be talking about today, the Malik site, which is a collaboration between Japan and Canada, 98, 2002, 2007, 2009. Oh, maybe I should just perhaps mention this point. I'm not a scientist, and I'm presenting this on behalf of Natural Resources Canada. So I'm not as technically proficient as our other speakers. So please excuse me if there's any mistakes or misunderstandings. So looking at gas hydrate production. So we saw a number of national programs in the previous slide. However, only 3 of those have actually tried field investigations related to production. The 2004, so it's 1970s, the 2004 Japanese research, it was helped advance research on offshore drilling and completion, and then undertook a short horizontal well. The Mount Albert in 2007, this is the U.S. Department of Energy, did exploration well and some very short, small-scale mini production tests. So Malik is the only site in the world where there's been exploratory drilling and small-scale testing. 2 types of full-scale testing, thermal simulation and pressure stimulation. So next, I'd like to look at the history of research collaboration and highlight achievements. So why Malik? Why was this particular area decided to be the best place to do this research and development? It's very up far north, far away from civilization, so it's not the most hospitable of environments. However, there was advantages. So there was a lot of data already available to determine the viability of the location. So the gas hydrate occurrences are thick and highly concentrated, the 150-meter gross hydrate thickness. And the pore space hydrate concentrations, 50 to 85%. So by doing research at the Malik site, we can also learn things that we can use in other settings, such as gas hydrate occurrence, geothermal regime, and reservoir properties. And compared to offshore locations, which are a lot more difficult to work with, being on land makes it a lot easier to conduct the research. So basically, if you use the resources available at Malik, it's something that's relatively familiar. It's on land. Canada is very good at drilling techniques. So if the science, engineering, and technology can come together there to get good results, then it can be applied elsewhere. So let's look at the gas hydrate setting. So in terms of what is Malik, it's on land, as we said, and it's a permafrost gas hydrate occurrence. So permafrost means the layer that is permanently frozen in the ground. And they have access of 200 industry exploration wells to assess the gas hydrates there, and measurement and estimation of in situ geothermal and geopressure regimes, and deep permafrost coring and geotechnical studies. So as a permafrost gas hydrate, you can see the contours, the outline of the deposit there, using regional geothermal data from exploration wells, so it's pretty straightforward. The graph on the right, the pressure, temperature, stability, field blue line, and the red line is the ground temperatures at Malik. So it's got an environment they're working under in this drilling. Another reason for doing the research at Malik, as shown in this pyramid, is that it's at the top of the resource pyramid. So this pyramid shows when you're looking at gas hydrates around the world, the general accessibility. There are many different formations at different depths. So Malik is at the very top with the Arctic sandstones under existing infrastructure. So that makes it much, much easier to access, and therefore you can do a lot more R&D and try a variety of different techniques more easily here than you would elsewhere. Malik is a prime example of this type of deposit in the terrestrial world. And looking at what Japan is doing, Nankai under the ocean is where Japan is looking at doing research and development. So Nankai is the main example, the prime example of offshore, and Malik is a prime example of a terrestrial type of research. So there are a number of milestones for gas hydrate production R&D at Malik. So it all began back in 1972 when two researchers, Billy and Dick, started looking at the possibility of gas hydrates in the Mackenzie Delta. In the 80s and 90s, there's investigation of the geothermal and geopressure regimes and permafrost cooking studies to further knowledge of that area. From 1998 was the first Canada-Japan Malik R&D program, and we covered high-quality gas hydrate and carried out extensive well logging. In 2002 was the second Canada-Japan Malik R&D program and state-of-the-art gas hydrate science program, and the first experimental production tests. There were 7 participant consortiums from 5 nations in that case. And 2007 and 2008, the third Canada-Japan R&D study conducted full-scale pressure drawdown production test, establishing a proof of concept. So you can see the timeline here started from 72 to identifying the potential up to 2007 and 2008, where they actually able to successfully produce in a test environment. So this is the timeline we're looking at here. So each of the 3 phases at research at MELEC moved toward our understanding of the onshore setting first, and then the offshore setting, which is of importance to Japan. The key was that at MELEC we had characterized a well-known site where we could do the R&D in a much more cost-effective and safe way. The pathway towards commercial production shows the advances with each step there, starting from the case studies at the bottom, drilling, geophysics and coring, moving up through the different programs to final step of commercial production. Canada wanted this collaboration to understand our resource and advance our understanding of production potential, and Japan wanted to gain a scientific understanding on an onshore site before going to a more challenging offshore site. So there was very good reasons for both sides to work together on this particular collaboration. At Oshishimoto, this is one of the largest collaborative R&D projects that Natural Resources Canada has participated in, with expenditures, R&D expenditures in terms of Canadian dollars, of direct expenditures of 70 million Canadian dollars and indirect of up to 100 million Canadian dollars, which is quite a large sum of money. So it shows how important it is to us in Canada and how important we consider this collaboration with Japan in terms of how we are willing to invest resources. So next, I'd like to move on to the comments by Dallimore Wright on lessons learned and thoughts on future R&D priorities, which is one of the main themes of today's forum. So in 13 years, Canada and Japan have moved from a very initial stage to actual proof of concept in R&D and the production of gas. So why was this successful? I think these are very good points to note today in terms of further proceeding with collaboration in the future. But first point, there is a clear goals and objectives by both parties. So you start off with knowing exactly what you're trying to achieve. In this case, Japan is using the MH21 program, Methyl Hydrate 21 program, and Canada, through the National Resources Canada Gas Hydrate program, had very clear objectives, so they were able to quickly agree and move forward. There was a strong scientific underpinning combined with practical real-world engineering. So you had the scientific basis as well as you had the technology to actually carry out what you're trying to do. A long-term commitment. So obviously in this kind of area, it's not going to be a simple matter to move forward and to be successful. So you need the long-term commitment, and you need to have check marks there to say, okay, what have we done? What do we need to do next in order to move forward? So in this case, there was 3 separate programs, as we mentioned before. They had, over the different years, different programs in place so they can review what they've done and then move on to the next step. As I say, this is going to be difficult. This is a new area. Understanding from the start that there's going to be setbacks and we'll be willing to work together to overcome them is a key to success. Having a strong science team from both sides, people working together to develop the program. And then strong, and he puts brave managers and management structure, so there'd be tough decisions need to be made. There's a lot of money involved. It's taking time, so you need to have a proper perspective and a proper management in place in order to keep moving the program forward. This is a key lesson. Now I'd like to look a bit about future R&D priorities in gas hydrates. This is from the two gentlemen that I just mentioned in terms of their opinions, so not necessarily an official, formal opinion of the Government of Canada and our National Resources Canada, but this is an areas I think that would be fruitful to continue looking at in research. So, of course, one of the greatest concerns right now is the greenhouse gases and how we can reduce the emissions. So in that case, using methyl hydrate technology as a carbon capture technology is one possibility. In order to do that, there's a number of steps. There's a requirement to verify the molecular exchange processes, requirement to consider engineering challenges for progressing from laboratory to field scales, requirement for demonstration project in marine setting, which would be, of course, important for Japan, assuming the planned ConocoPhillips U.S. Department of Energy test is successful. So there are a number of steps that need to be covered before this can be considered a viable technology, but unless you get started now, then it's going to never get done. So in terms of the carbon capture and storage, CO2 sequestration as gas hydrate, requirement for more detailed study of CO2 hydrate formation processes in porous media and natural formations, requirement to consider engineering challenges for progressing from laboratory to field scales, and requirement for demonstration through a project in a suitable candidate geological reservoir. So these are some of the steps we need to look at in order to move this technology forward. And then numerical simulation studies, another area that they consider to be important to move the technology forward. Need for clarification of gas hydrate formation dissociation kinetics and mechanisms under different environmental conditions, e.g. pure water hydrate systems versus porous media. And refinement of the molecular and pore scale representation of these mechanisms within existing numeric simulators. So these are some ideas that could be utilized to move this technology forward in this particular area. So this brings me to the end of this particular presentation. As I said, this is brought in as an example of collaboration, a very successful collaboration between Canada and Japan. And the idea is to hopefully stimulate ideas and look at possibilities in your areas. We have the Canadian researchers here today who will be speaking on their technologies. And we as the embassy are very hopeful that these will lead to new relationships and new possible collaboration, and we are always willing and able, where we can, to assist in that matter. So please don't hesitate to contact the embassy or myself to ask for information or for introductions or whatever. If you're looking for something in Canada, you're looking for information about research in Canada, etc., I would be more than happy to help. So thank you very much for your attention today, and I hope a very successful forum. どうもありがとうございました。
どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you for the presentation. Based on the presentation, Japan and Canada has a strong cooperative relationship in terms of metal hydrate research. Hydrate vis-a-vis CO2 sequestration. From that point of view, there can be wider ranged collaborative work possible between the two countries. We are going to focus on metal hydrate, but hopefully we will have a discussion on the wider perspective.